This presentation is going to be all about social emotional development and behavior challenges that might encompass that, with some challenges with that social emotional development. So can you all read this from where you're sitting? It looks a little fine print. But what is social emotional development? I try to explain it as in an area of your development that we would maybe call your mental health. So this is basically your social emotional development needs to be really healthy for you to be able to have social skills, for you to be able to have confidence, for you to be able to problem solve. This is how we regulate our emotions. We want to be independent and comfortable to investigate our surroundings. So a child that has a strong sense of social emotional development is going to be able to explore their environment more, is going to be able to branch away from that home base that is their caregiver. This is a crucial part of your development. We have to be able to feel safe and secure in ourself before we're going to be able to learn anything. So to be able to feel safe that I'm sitting here right now, that I feel comfortable here. I'm not going to be able to learn anything next if I don't feel like where I'm sitting right now, I feel safe. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how to help a child that may struggle with some of those challenges. So this is called the circle of security. Is anyone, I know some people are going to raise their hand, but is anyone familiar with the circle of security? Okay, so in layman's terms, the circle of security means that we have to have a secure base, and that child's caregiver is always going to be home base, is always going to be that secure person in their life. You have to have that good foundation with that child, to have a relationship with them before they're ever going to be able to branch away from you. So as they get stronger, as they get older, children naturally start to be able to crawl away from you. They're able to roll over and go get a ball that they saw and then roll back to mom or grandma or foster parent or whoever and share that with them. So as we get more secure moving on, the further out a person is able to branch away from that safe base. So the next step would be I'm able to support my exploration. I'm able to walk away and explore over here at this table, but I'm always checking back with my home base. I'm checking back with mom or dad or grandparent just to make sure they're still there, make sure that I'm good. And if something frightens me, I'm going to run right back to them. And then we're going to move on to the next step. After that, they feel secure with that. They're going to start wanting to, oh, watch me. Watch me. Ooh, mommy, watch this. Watch this. Ooh, grandma, watch me do this. Have you guys experienced some of those things before where like, ooh, watch me. I need you to see me do this. Oh, watch me do this. Do a cartwheel. But then let's say Johnny falls out of the tree when he's climbing. He needs to know that he has a very secure relationship and a safe relationship with his caregiver, that he is welcomed back, that he can run back to his mom when he's feeling insecure. So this is something that we see throughout our entire lifespan. We do it as adults, where we may need to call our mom when we need something. We may need to call dad, like to vent about something. So, sorry. I got a little emotional when the last person that was speaking about who is our safe person, and that was my dad. And he passed away a few years ago, so having that safe person not to be there, you have to find somebody else. So when someone is moving away from their biological family and maybe moving into foster care, that safe person changes. Or if someone is grieving a loss over a main caregiver, that person changes. So we are going back to the very beginning. So if there is a change in caregiver and that foundation is not strong, we have to repair that. We have to find ways to build that relationship, to foster that relationship with that person. So if you're a foster parent, or you've been a grandparent where you're caring for your grandchild, where there's been a change of caregivers, that circle of security is going to be so important to know about, because that child is not going to be able to move past exploring because they are not feeling safe, because they don't have that strong sense of security. They don't have that relationship. So this is huge, because I can't go to someone's home and help them learn how to speak when that child is so scared that I've just walked through the door. I have a child that screams every single time I walk through the door, and I've known him for 3 years, every single week, because he's so terrified that I'm going to take him away from his mother. There's no learning happening during that visit. There's no, me trying to teach him how to climb on the couch or how to learn his colors, because he's so in that flight or fight mode at that moment that he can't learn anything. So we have to really foster that relationship between that caregiver. At least one person in that child's life needs to be a stable caregiver for them. So we're going to go over some ideas that if you are having a hard time with that relationship with your child, to where you're feeling like they can't go out and come back to you, then we need to work on repairing some of that relationship. Okay, I know you're not going to be able to see this, but this is categorized in different months to give some ideas on how to nurture and foster that relationship. You're going to get this handout. I've already sent it to the Friends of Tennessee. They already have all of this, so they're going to send it to you, I guess, at the end of our conference. So you're going to have a copy of this. So let's say that you are fostering a child, and you get the child and they're almost 2. There's actually tips on here that shows you like how to foster that relationship, how to repair that relationship. And a lot of times when I'm going into someone's home and we're talking about behavior challenges, if we're being really honest in that family, like we have a really good rapport with each other and a good trusting relationship, they're going to tell me things as if I am their therapist, that they're going to tell me things and confide in me. And a lot of times parents will tell me, I love my child, but I'm having a hard time liking them. And haven't we all been there, right? It's really hard sometimes to like your child when there's behavior challenges going on. And so that's where I'm like, let's talk about some ways that we can build that relationship back. And that happened just a few days ago with a family that I went to go see, where I wasn't even there to really see the older kids, but they were like in a crisis at that point, and I was able to help let's talk about fostering this relationship, because there's not a lot of learning that's going to be happening right now for the little ones if we can't help support you and this other child. So it doesn't matter if it's an infant or if it's a toddler or if it is a kid that's in 6th grade. We are all connection seekers. It is our human ability that we always seek connection with someone. So whether that's at least one person to you, like your parent or a best friend, that's just our nature. We are always going to find someone to connect with. And if that connection doesn't feel solid, we need to repair that. We need to find a way, because if you are the parent of a child and you're having a really hard time liking them, we need to find ways that we can find some common ground and repair that relationship. So here's just some examples. So this kind of goes from infant to older children, like that preschool age. We first are very affectionate. Even when you have that little newborn baby, you're going to love them and cuddle them and kiss them and sing to them. That's not always natural for everybody. That's not a natural thing. So there have been times where I've talked to families about, I need you to hold them. I need you to talk to them. I need you to make eye contact with them. I need at least, one time a day that you find some time to actually connect with that child. And then we get further and further and further into a deeper connection. So we're going to go from having that safe home base with that parent or that caregiver, doing a lot of turn taking Play, so I'm going to roll the ball to you and you're going to roll the ball to me, seems very, very simple, but you're connecting in that moment. Playing like hide and seek, playing peekaboo, all those little things, we call those social games. Those are games because they're socially bringing up their development. They're strengthening that area of their development. So we're going to try to find those back and forth playful games, even just tickling. You know, if a kid likes to be tickled or play, monster, like I'm going to come and get you. I've had children that are, a lot older that are not able to express themselves and talk, but we can play like, oh, I'm going to get you, and tag and chase on the playground and create a connection with them. As we get older, we're going to explore feelings through play. A lot of times I use like puppets or talking about when we're reading books, how do you think she's feeling? When so-and-so took her teddy bear away, look at her face. How do you think she's feeling right now? Do you ever feel that way? So we're going to try to explore some feelings in different ways, like through play or books. We're going to read books about feelings. I mean, I have a huge list on Amazon on my child's wish list of like talking about different types of feelings. Like you can go to the library and like if your child is feeling anxious, you can get some books about different types of feelings. And then brainstorming better choices as they get older. I mean, that's like a preschool level, but again, that literally is something I used with my mom not long ago, where I'm like, you were frustrated and you left the doctor. Do you think that was a good choice? Because you still needed your medicine and you got mad and you left. So these are strategies you can use like in everyday life with your relationships with your spouse, with your relationships with your neighbor. Like you can use, and your children and older children, but talking about like choices. That was not a good choice. What do you think a better choice would have been? And even making family rules. I've done that a lot with like as children get a little bit older and can start verbalizing how they're feeling. Like, I see that you're having a hard time sitting in your chair and you want to stand. What would be something we can do instead? And maybe we can put that as a rule for our house. A big thing that I do want to talk about today, if there's anything that you take away from this session, is that I want you to understand that behaviors are always led by feelings. They're always led by emotions. So when we're talking about behavior challenges, what is it that child is feeling right now? If that child is going up and biting another child, what do you think they were feeling in that moment? What happened right before that? Were they crowded? Were they feeling like there was a lot of people in their space? Was there trauma involved? Is this child like afraid somebody's going to take something from them? So what are they feeling at that moment? Are they feeling anxious because they don't like mealtime? And so when we put them in the high chair, they start throwing things because they're trying to escape the high chair. They know if they keep throwing stuff, mommy's going to come over and pick me up and say, okay, you're throwing stuff, you're all done. They may actually want you to do that. So they're doing something. Their emotion that they're feeling is, I'm anxious about eating, I don't like eating, it always becomes this big ordeal, I don't want to eat, I don't like the way textures feel, and then if I throw something, that's the behavior. So we kind of have to be a little detective with that, so we look standing back and say, what are they feeling right now? 100% of the time, behavior is going to always be led by an emotion, a feeling of some sort. So what is it that we are feeling? Some questions that you might ask yourself, or a caregiver might ask themselves, would be, what's wrong with my child? Why do they always do this? Why do they always act this way? Why does he keep doing that? Why don't they listen? And what does she want from me? A lot of common questions I get from families when we're talking about behavior. So this is my tree that I always use because I'm a very visual person, so I like to use visuals when I'm doing presentation, that when we're looking at a tree, we never usually see the roots under the ground. Those roots represent the feelings that your child is having. You can't see those. You can't see what your child is feeling. All you are seeing is the tree, which is what we represent as the behavior of that child. So when your child is having a really hard time, or your spouse is having a really hard time, or your neighbor or your friend, think about those roots. What is actually happening underground that I can't see? What are they feeling right now? Because there's something leading that behavior. And I love this quote. I saw it on Facebook, and I didn't have the name. Sorry, I didn't put the name of who said it, but I loved it because it says, beneath every behavior is a feeling, and beneath every feeling is a need. And when we meet that need, rather than focusing on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause of the symptoms. So being able to recognize what that child is feeling or what that person is feeling, and being able to then help some healing from the behavior. So here's an activity with shifting your focus. So instead of thinking, what's wrong with my child? We could think, what does my child need? Instead of thinking, why do they keep doing this? We can think, what is my child feeling? Why don't they listen to me? How can I? I'm going to pause and make you guys do this. So how can I? Nope. Thank you. What does my child want from me? What is my child trying to communicate with me? Does that make sense? That instead of only looking at the behavior and only thinking, why are they doing this? Why aren't they listening? Sometimes, and maybe not in that moment, because that's expert level to be able to say, okay, pause, hold on, what are you feeling right now? That may be too hard. You're too involved in it right then. But maybe later in the day you can reflect. Maybe like when they're asleep, you can talk to somebody like, what are they feeling? What was going on? And I'm going to send you some handouts about that where you can actually, if it's pretty intense, you can actually start recording, like documenting it, like what happened right before they hit their sibling. They hit their sibling every single day. Is there something in common that's going on here? What could that be? Is it because it's always right before bedtime and after dinner? What's going on there? It could just be that they're overly tired and they're extremely emotional, and that's just what happens. I think there's an example I always use them as my example because they're right here. But their son, he would throw something right before bedtime, and we realized that it wasn't throwing, he was trying to communicate he was tired. Yeah. So he knew that like when throwing, it was like, oh buddy, you're tired. So it was a way to communicate, like he would just throw it, like, you're tired, because it would always happen right before bedtime. So having that knowledge is going to also allow you to be more empathetic, to say, I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you. Let's figure this out together and let's repair this. So finding the trigger. Here's some really big hot topics of triggers. So transitions, transitioning from one activity to the next, transitioning from one place to the next place, so transitioning from inside to getting into the car to go to the dentist. Transitioning from, okay, we're all done playing, it's time for dinner. Lots of transitions during the day, and children that don't really have a strong social emotional development are going to hate transitions because they're going to feel like their life is completely out of control. They never get to control anything. So you telling them like it's time to do this all day long is going to be hard for them because they're not going to get a lot of opportunity to have a say-so. So we're going to go over some ideas on how to help with that. Language is another one that can be a big trigger for children, using specific words like no, stop, don't. I hear that a lot from families. Like every time I say no hitting, no stomping, no climbing, it's like immediate tantrum because that word no has now made them fall down and have a tantrum because that's all they heard. They didn't hear no climbing, they only heard no, and that resulted into some behavior problems. Environment or setting. This can kind of go along with that sensory part of, is the environment triggering something? Is it really loud in here and it's echoing right now and the lights are really bright and that's why I'm getting kind of snippy? Like, is that control, like what's going on with my emotions? Yes, sometimes, but For children, like sometimes the setting can be a lot too. Like I don't like being outside because it's too hot and I'm gonna become very irritable, which is gonna result in me biting, my friend at school. And then objects, that one's an easy one. Like, so-and-so has the toy that I want and I'm triggered because I saw it and that's a toy I played with yesterday and that is my toy because I played with it yesterday and I'm gonna grab it and push my friend down. So that can also be something that's triggering. Knowing your triggers ahead of time, like if you can be that detective, is gonna help a lot with those behavior challenges, because if it's that toy, maybe we need more of that specific toy. Maybe that toy needs to take a break in the closet and doesn't need to come out. Like maybe if the environment is hard for that child, then we can change. We can give them a heads up. Hey, we're going to the dentist today. Just wanted to let you know, like don't be surprised when we walk in there. There's lots of things we can do to help prepare that child for any of those triggers. And we're gonna go over some of those ideas. Can you all read this one? Kind of. I see a lot of squinty eyes. Okay, so you're gonna get this handout anyway, so I'll just use it for my own benefit so I can see it. This would be to help with those trigger words. So when you say, don't run, that child is probably not gonna hear you. Instead, we wanna tell them what we want them to do. Use your walking feet. Sounds a lot friendlier than stop running, no running. Use your walking feet, please. Or can you stomp like a dinosaur down the hallway? Stomp, show me how you stomp. Way friendlier and way less of a trigger than yelling and saying no running. So these are all different types of examples. Don't stand on the chair. I need you to sit on your bottom. Sit in the chair, sit on your bottom. Do you want to sit on your knees? Do you want to sit on the floor? We're gonna sit right now. Again, a lot more friendly than saying, you need to sit down. Do you see what I mean? Like, I don't want somebody to say that to me. I would feel very sad too. Like if all day long people are just like, you do this and you do this. Like it's a lot friendlier of a way. And it's also creating a connection. Do you see how that kind of intersects? Is that we're creating a connection with this child. We're not constantly telling them all day long. We're not trying to get this child to be obedient 100% of the time. We were trying to connect with them. So when I say, I need you to use your walking feet, they're more likely to listen and comply with that than if I were to say, I need you to stop. I need you to hold my hand. I need you to stop running. And that's just a lot of directions during the day when toddlers and young children are just wanting independence most of the time. Okay, so here's some other, I'm sorry these are so blurry. I wish you could see them a little bit better. But again, you're gonna get all the copies of these, but these are some transition strategies too. So transitioning from one place to the next, do you wanna walk like a dinosaur to wash your hands, or do you wanna hop like a bunny to the sink to wash your hands? Which one do you wanna do? Very, very friendly, and especially if you do it with them. That's gonna really make those triggers not as hard. I was telling Amanda and Seth over here about my husband and I got into an argument after my daughter went to bed because he was like, I swear all day long, all you do is give her choices. Like you just give her choices, just tell her to brush her teeth. And I'm like, okay, let's let you try to tell her to brush her teeth. Full on meltdown, just rolling on the floor, screaming, I don't wanna brush my teeth. But then if we say, okay, how are we gonna get there? Are you gonna hop like a bunny or are you gonna waddle like a penguin? Okay, which toothbrush do you wanna use? You wanna use your pink one or you wanna use the blue one? Do you wanna use mommy's toothpaste or your toothpaste? That whole time she was able to have control. For a child that wants to be in control all the time and then you're telling them I'm making the decisions, all I'm doing is playing tug of war with her. And so when he was having that comment about like, all you do is give choices, because when we give someone a choice, they have the ability to say which one they want to do. Rather than me saying, you are doing this, they can decide. Maybe that day she doesn't want to use her pink toothbrush. Maybe she wants to use her blue one. I'm not going to trigger her. You get to choose here. They feel like they're in control. So there's lots of different strategies on here, like you can sing a song as you're transitioning to something. You can pretend you're an animal. You can use wait time. So that's a big one, like you can do it now or you can do it in 5 minutes. Regardless, we're gonna brush your teeth. But do you wanna do it now or do you wanna wait 5 minutes after we read the story? So again, like I'm letting her be in control of that situation, even though I gave the choices, they're getting to make that decision on their own. And we're able to have a good relationship because mommy isn't gonna get upset and I'm not gonna get snippy and we can get to bedtime without tears. That's a win. That's a huge connection for us rather than like, I'm done with you, you need to go to bed. There's a difference there. So as children get older, we really want to foster that autonomy, foster that independence. All children, as they are growing up, they are going to naturally seek to do things on their own. I call that the me do it stage. No, me do it, like, okay, like try to put on your shoes by yourself, even though I know you can't, but go ahead and give that a try, even though we're 5 minutes late already, but go ahead. That's hard because they're in that stage. So that's not always likely, not always when you're rushing out the door, allowing them time to put on their shoes. But since I know that's something that my child wants to do, I have to sacrifice my time by waking up earlier to actually give them time to do that. If that's something that they're wanting to do, me stopping and saying, I need you to stop and I'm putting on your shoes, we have to go. I just took away that opportunity for her to like have that independence to do something on her own. And all that's doing, again, is putting up a wall between us. So I'm gonna try my best to let's give some more time to that. Maybe I need to wake up 5 minutes earlier. Maybe I need to offer her, which socks do you want to wear? Or you do one and I do a shoe. So we're just going to give a little bit more time for them to foster that autonomy. Fill their buckets. That's something that my boss had told me a long time ago when I went to her with struggles with my own child. And we talked about this exact topic. And she said, you just need to fill their buckets. That's what kids want. And when I say fill their buckets, I mean we're going to flood them with positivity. We're going to delight in them. So telling them, I love it when you hug me like that. I love it when you sit next to me at the table. And you are so good at drawing. Look how good your drawings are. I love it when you use that pink marker that way. We're going to delight in them and we're going to fill that bucket. And giving choices is a great strategy for that, where they can feel like they are really doing something. They get to choose what outfit they wear. They get to choose which cup they drink from. They get to choose what show they watch. We're filling their buckets. We're basically saying a lot of yes in context and trying to eliminate a lot of the no, don't do that. I went into a home one time and they had this this really decorative like platter on their coffee table, and I swear it had like shards of glass in it, and it was a toddler, and the whole time the family was, no, stop, don't do that, don't touch it, put it back, don't put it in your mouth. And I'm like, let's just remove it. Let's just move it, maybe move it up higher, remove it altogether, because all we're doing all day is saying no, stop, don't. Isn't that exhausting to have to constantly be going and redirecting them all day long and taking that out of their mouth? Let's just stop that. Let's just move it. And now we don't have to say stop, don't all the time. So we're just changing things in their environment. So we're getting to eliminate some of those words and say yes just a little bit more within, within appropriateness. We're not going to go crazy, but we're going to be able to say yes a little bit more. And a lot of these are different opportunities that you can plan to help fill their bucket. So like letting them help you cook. I'm not going to let my child put the spaghetti noodles in a boiling pot of water, but I am going to let her maybe take the spaghetti and break it in half in a bowl for me. I'm going to let her help me wash some of the dishes, even though it makes way more of a mess than it is to actually wash the dishes, or, I mean, there's lots of things that they can do that we can get them involved in to where they really feel like they're doing something. They really feel like they're a part of it. And finding a connection with your child sometimes is challenging. I'm not into superheroes, and I'm not into some of those things that other kids are into, but I can find a way to connect with that child by meeting them where they're at. So if they are loving superheroes, by golly, I might just have to wear like a superhero shirt to my visit with them, or I may have to like read about superheroes to like be able to have a conversation, because we want to have a connection in some way. The power struggle in toddlerhood and really in life is a lot about playing tug of war. I used that example earlier, is that when you're playing tug of war with someone, whether that is with your friend or your parent, again, or your spouse or your child, neither of you are winning, because you were literally just tugging back and forth. So if you could just drop the rope, like just think about like, you know what, I'm just gonna drop the rope right now, because once I drop it, we're not tugging back and forth. And I'm going to let you feel some sort of win. Like, what is it you're feeling right now? We're playing tug of war about what? Like what music we're playing at the table? What are we fighting about right now? What are you feeling? So if you drop the rope figuratively, then you can help foster that relationship back. And again, here's some examples of questions, like of choices that you can give. Empower them. This is a way to help them feel healthy and positive in their development. Okay. Here, I love this little cartoon because a lot of the times when we talk about timeout or we talk about discipline, it's a lot about ignoring the child, putting them in their room, walking away, and what is this child wanting right now? He is just on fire. What is he wanting? Comfort. He's wanting comfort. He's wanting connection. And naturally, we want to pull away. And maybe sometimes that is the safe thing to do. Depending on where you are in your own mental health, sometimes I will tell people, if you need to walk away, that's okay too. We've all been there as well. It's okay to say, Mommy needs a break right now. I'm going to go breathe for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to come back, and we're going to try this again, because I'm having a really hard time right now. I've said that. I've been in the car, and I'm like, I'm just going to, 2 minutes, I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes, and I'm going to just not talk. I'm just going to breathe, and then when the timer goes off, I really want to hear about what you did today at school. But there are just times, just even getting into the car makes me triggered, and just walking around to the driver's seat, I don't want to even go home because I'm just so tired. I don't want to have that drive home. Sometimes I just need to take a chill. Like, we're going to listen to the song, and then after we're done, I want to hear all about that, what you were just talking about. So we're connection seekers. We're always wanting to connect with somebody. And so instead of pushing them away and saying, you need to go in timeout, you need to go to your room, unless it's for, you need to calm down yourself, just being there, even if it's just sitting there, maybe not even making eye contact, just being nearby is what children need. They need a connection with you. I love this. This is something I actually talk about a lot, and I talk a lot about with my friends that have older kids, is that if you're having a hard time with your child, if there's some crazy behavior challenges, or you're just having a hard time, we talked about before, like, I love them, but I'm having a hard time liking them, you need to do some repairing with that child. So I have said this many times, scheduling at least 10 minutes every day to where you just connect with them one-on-one. Sometimes we see this a lot with parents that have multiples. They may have some challenges because they're all on the same level of development, and they're going to compete with mom's attention or dad's attention or grandma's attention. There's going to be behavior challenges. So this connecting, like for 10 minutes of just sitting down, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to play a game with me? Do you want to read the books we got from the library? Do you want to sing that song that we like? It's literally scheduling time in, not time out. The more you do timeout, is that child is just going to keep doing those behaviors more and more and more to get your attention because it's working. It's working beautifully. So if we spend more time in with them and really trying to repair that relationship, you're going to see a change. You're going to see a shift. And it's time and time and time again where I tell parents, like, schedule that. Let them know that's on the schedule. Like, even for your older kids, like, let them know that that's coming. Like, oh, I can't wait for mommy and Marielle time today. Like, I'm so excited for that. Like, what are we going to do later today? It happens where we get so busy and overwhelmed in our lives and so stressed about everything that sometimes it is hard to spend a lot of time in, and we just kind of go through the motions of the day. And if you see that after a while, there are going to be some behavior challenges because of that. Oh man, you probably can't even see that either, but you're going to see it on my slides when I send it. But this is like my meme explosion. I just had so many like snapshots that I made on Facebook and Instagram and all these different platforms that I saw them, and I'm like, I couldn't find a space on my PowerPoint, so I just put them all in one like collage. But I loved all the different things that it was saying, that there's no such thing as a bad kid, just an angry, hurt, tired, scared, confused, impulsive ones expressing their feelings and needs the only way they know how. We owe it to every single one of them to always remember that. And I just feel like that's so powerful because there are no such thing as bad kids. You know, I hate when I go into a classroom, with a teacher and they say, oh, they're a biter. I'm glad you're here. They're biting everybody. They're the biter. They're not a bad kid. What is it, the feeling that is leading that behavior? These are not bad kids. We're not bad people. Have you ever, I don't know if any of you have ever like gone through counseling. Have you ever heard your counselor, different presentations you may have gone to, that when people react a certain way, you should say, what happened to you? Rather than what's wrong with you? What happened to you to make you react that way? Why did that person flip me off on the highway and like beep at me? What happened? Why are they so angry? Rather than being so angry at them and responding that way and playing tug of war with, in traffic, you can say, what happened to them? What is going on with them? And we're shifting our point of view to thinking in a different way. And then this is your reminder that you have made it through everything you didn't think that you were strong enough for. I love that one too, because it's like, this is really hard. If you're in the trenches of this right now, it feels like you're never going to get out. But I promise you, there is another side of this. There is another way that we can overcome some of these behavior challenges and some of these things that you may be seeing in the PowerPoint that are struggles for you, that we can foster that relationship. It may take some extra work. It may take an extra 10 minutes off your alarm clock. It may take an extra 10 minutes out of your day to sit and be in the moment with that child, not with your phone, not being preoccupied, but actually in the moment with them. That's where that relationship is going to be fostered, and that's going to be very strong. I'm pretty sure that's my last slide. Oh, yeah. And then, of course, there's no such thing as perfect parenting. I talk about all these things all the time, but I'm telling you, like, I literally have to talk myself out of, like, screaming in the car. Like, I'm not up here saying, like, I'm the model parent. Like, these are things that are so easy to do. We practice this all of the time. I lost my cool yesterday because I had a headache, and I was like, I let that take control over, how I was behaving. And so I had to apologize to my 5-year-old for, being snippy. I'm really sorry. I had a headache yesterday. That was no excuse for me being, short with you. I'm really sorry. I really want to spend some time with you tonight reading that book. There's no such thing as perfect parenting. This made me laugh because you can't read this one either? You can a little bit? Okay. I love the end because it says, and also don't forget the coconut oil, because there's just, especially this time in our lives and in this generation, and how we're competing against, screen time and TikTok, and we're competing against all of these different things. It just feels very overwhelming, doesn't it? Like if you talk to people that have children that are an older generation, like they didn't have to deal with some of the same things we do as parents or as grandparents or as caregivers right now. They didn't have to deal with social media. They didn't have to deal with like internet bullying. Like there's just things that they didn't have to deal with CoComelon or Baby Shark. Like there's just things that they didn't have to deal with that we do, and it just feels so overwhelming sometimes. You need to do this, and they need to get a good appetite, and they need to sleep 12 hours every night, and it's just a lot. And then don't forget the coconut oil. Like it just feels like very heavy. But there is no such thing as a perfect parent. There's everything about just being present with your child, having some time to foster that relationship, and being there with them. All right. Is there any questions, any comments, anything anybody wants to add in there? Anything? I will say, I thought about putting this video, I think a couple of you have probably seen it because we're friends on Facebook, but a video of the other day of my daughter playing in the rain and how we were leaving an event that was outside, and it became a monsoon, and I was so irritated because I had to redo my whole schedule to be present for that event, and then it became a monsoon. We were outside, and it was thundering, and I was just so irritated because there was no maps or directions on where we were supposed to go, so I ended up just taking a hike to get to this event. It was just a big ordeal. Like there was a lot, it was the end of the day, so it was just a lot on my mind, and then I get to this hill where we had to walk down, and it was freshly mowed grass in the pouring rain, and I was like, this is where I'm gonna get hurt in front of all of these people, like, and my daughter, who is not very stable walking, is gonna slide down, and it was just a mess. I was irritated the whole time. The whole time I was just like not in the moment with her. I was so mad, and I was texting my husband like, this is the worst thing I ever did. I shouldn't have come to this. Like, you're going to have to come rescue us. And I told her, I was like, when the rain gets to a lull, because I was looking on my app for the weather, I'm like, we're going to take a run for it to the car. And she's like, okay. She's over there playing with her umbrella, opening it and closing it. Like the only kid there playing in the rain. Everyone else is like with their mom, and she's over there breaking my umbrella. And I'm like, okay, it's ready, let's go, let's go. I take off my shoes, and I'm like, let's go for it. And I'm like, let's run up the hill, which I ended up hurting my knee doing, but that's a whole other story. But we get up to the top, and I am just livid at this point. I'm like covered in grass, just like, let's get to the car. And when we got to the very top, we were like really close to the car, she starts running, because the whole time she's like a sloth, like trying to pull her. This umbrella's too heavy, my feet are wet. And we finally get to the top, and she just drops the umbrella and just starts running towards these puddles. And I'm like, no, like in slow motion. And she just starts jumping. And, you know, I was like, why am I even getting upset right now? Because first of all, we're already wet, right? Like she's already broken the umbrella. We're already gonna get in the car wet. So what's the point? I was thinking I need to get home and do work, and I need to start dinner, and I just paused, and I was like, what if I just let her play? And I did. And it was the most beautiful moment. And that's where I'm like, I wish I should have brought the video, but I got my camera out to record her just because I literally wanted to show my husband, like, look what I did. Like, I paused, I did that thing I was writing about on my PowerPoint, and I was so proud of myself for, like, you know, just like taking a moment and taking a breath. And like the words that came out of her mouth was, this is what life is all about. This is what she said. She's 5 years old, and she goes, this is what life is all about, whether it's raining or it's sunny. She was like, dancing in the rain is what life is all about. And I was like, could not believe it. Like, she was like, I just love puddles, and even if my dress is wet, this is what life is all about. I can still have fun. And I was like, I could have missed that. I almost did. I almost missed that, because I was so angry about everything else that was going on, controlling my behavior because I was feeling overwhelmed and wet. And I almost took that away from her, and that was such a beautiful moment for the both of us. And what was even better is that as other people were leaving, feeling the same way I was because I saw it on their face, when they saw her and walked around the corner, they stopped and they started playing in the rain too. And they started jumping in the puddles too, and I was like, to see other parents just pause and do that, I was like, what a chain reaction that caused, because I paused. I paused and said, you know what? I don't need to fuss at her right now. I don't need to let my emotions take over. I'm just going to pause for a minute. And we had a great time. And I want you to practice that pause too. Just find a time where you can just say, right before you're about to, no, don't do that. Maybe pause and say, all right, go for it. You know, maybe not running into traffic, but, you know, pause appropriately. But thank you.